I'm Steve Wilkerson. I'm with Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, it's a new year. Welcome back.
Well, thanks.
Well, Governor Scott's inauguration for his second term as governor is this week. How would you compare what he faces this week and this year with what he faced 4 years ago in his first inauguration?
It is a significantly different environment in various ways, but one of which was when 4 years ago he had virtually no political experience. He was coming into a scene where a lot of the Republican establishment even had opposed him earlier, and he was coming in with a lot of ideas, sort of Tea Party flavored ideas coming into office. But also just the scenario in the state is a lot different. He came in 2010 at the tail end of the recession that really hit the state hard. There was high unemployment. There was, financial budget problems for the state. Fast forward to now, unemployment has dropped significantly. The budget is in surplus. And he, I'm not sure that he is still the most popular person in Republican politics in Florida, but he has, worked with the legislature over the past few years. He successfully ran a campaign that brought together Republicans all over the state to support him. And he, so now he's heading into his second term with his feet under him a little bit more.
Well, you're going to be covering the inauguration, the speech, the 2015 session. What do you expect to hear from him in terms of his priorities and that sort of thing?
I think more of the same. I mean, his motto from day one has been jobs, 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 and that's not going to change. We already know from his campaign, as well as some of the early indications on this speech, that he's going to be talking about economic development, holding taxes down, trying to limit government and bring in jobs. He's talking about trying to visit states like Illinois and Pennsylvania and New York and trying to sell Florida to residents of those states and businesses of those states to come to Florida. His pitch is, we have lower taxes and we have less regulation, and oh yeah, we have better weather too. But I don't think any of that is going to change in his second term. One thing about him that I think I always try to keep in mind about him is how focused and disciplined he really is. I mean, he's not, his legislative agenda, especially the last couple of years, has been very narrow. And in that way, he's been able to get what he wants because he only focuses on a few high priorities. He's also sort of evolved a little bit over the years on education issues. He has, he's talking about trying to have the highest, public school funding going forward. And so that's been something he's kind of reached for. Another thing that he started in his first term, and he's showing signs he will continue, is trying to hold down tuition at state colleges and universities. I don't think any of that stuff is going to change. There may be some other things that we don't know about at this point, but those are the sort of the basics of where he's going.
Well, one of the challenges he had 4 years ago, to put it mildly, was would he get along with the legislature? Would he get along with the Republicans? And any governor of the state of Florida, his legacy or her legacy will be determined by how they do with the legislature, which of their policies, which of their bills go through the legislature. So let's talk about the lame duck status and when that sets in with his second term. Is he going to be able to push through things all 4 years or 2 years? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think in the first couple of years he will. I mean, again, he was reelected with support from Republicans all over the state. And if he keeps his focus narrow on these sorts of issues that Republicans love, tax cuts, they love to reduce regulation, they want to try to draw businesses in the state. I mean, that's meat and potatoes in Republican politics. So if he can kind of keep focused on those sorts of issues, I think for the next couple years at least, he will, have success with the legislature. I think down the road, it's a little bit harder to tell. I mean, in 2016, things are going to start to change because people are going to start running for governor in 2018, and so there may be some different dynamics. I think in observing him and his relationship with the legislature, it is different than the previous governors that I've seen. I've been here with Jeb Bush as governor and Charlie Crist as governor. Jeb Bush had an agenda that was a mile wide, and he pushed as hard as he could on his priorities, pretty much down the list. Yeah. And Scott's not that way. I mean, he's not as engaged, if you will, as Jeb was, for instance. But he has focused on his priorities and has been able, at least especially during the past couple of years, to move forward with them.
All right, let's shift gears here for a minute. It's looking more and more like former Florida Governor Jeb Bush is going to run for president. I want to get your views on that. And if so, what does that mean for current Florida Senator Marco Rubio's candidacy for president? Let's start with Jeb Bush.
Well, he's showing all signs he's going to run at this point. I mean, he made an announcement that he was, formally exploring, or I forget what the terminology was, but that he's moving forward. He's also resigned from corporate boards, those sorts of things, which is all laying the groundwork for a campaign. And I sort of alluded to this in his relationship with the legislature, but anybody who observed Jeb Bush knows that when he makes up his mind to do something, he is 100 miles an hour, full bore. So I think that's the indications we're seeing at this point, that he is going to do it. There's a lot of chatter, if you will, the Washington chatter about whether he can appeal to Tea Party members and, whether there's going to be this big rift. There are a couple issues he disagrees with that segment of the Republican Party on, immigration and Common Core being the main ones. But on the other hand, I think the Republican establishment and the financial people probably look at him very favorably. And so I think they're probably encouraging him behind the scenes pretty strong to run.
All right, let's move to Senator Rubio. He has been making noises that even if former Governor Bush gets in, he's not out.
Well, the relationship between them is that when Jeb Bush was governor, he was sort of a mentor to Rubio, and that's pretty well known. They're both from Miami. They both have fairly strong ties down there, so there's a lot of similarities. Rubio, in a New York Times interview, said, you don't make the decision to run for president based on whether you're friends. You might make that decision when you're deciding whether to run for the county commission or the mosquito control district, but you don't make that decision to run for president based on whether you're friends. But I think a lot of people think there's only room for one of them in this race. I mean, one of the issues simply is money. Mm-hmm. And, in terms of Florida donors, they have both relied on the same base. And it would be interesting to see if they both run where those donors would go. My suspicion is a lot of them would go with Jeb Bush. I can't prove that, don't know it. But also, it's going to require national money to run this race. Jeb Bush has, through his family contacts, has fundraising base all over the country. And would Rubio be able to match that, or at least, be in the game with that? I don't know at this point. I mean, he's made a name for himself in the U.S. Senate. So I think it's all going to play out relatively soon, though.
It's going to be a fun year. Thank you, Jim. For more news about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.